A guaranteed premium that will never increase, a guaranteed cash value, and a guaranteed death benefit that can never decrease. To find out how you can get final expense insurance with a guaranteed lifetime rate lock, call LifeCare at 800-671-0247. 800-671-0247. 800-671-0247.
Now that we're home more than ever, we need to feel safe. Call it a sign of the times or the world we now live in. What do you want to keep safe? The people in your life? What do you want to protect? Your possessions, the things that belong to you, the things that you've worked hard for? Wouldn't it be nice to have tested, trusted 24/7 protection? Peace of mind, real protection that's always there for you and your whole family? Well, now you can with one of our state-of-the-art home security systems. Everyone thinks their home is safe until the unexpected happens. Start protecting your home and loved ones today with the affordable next generation in home security. To keep your family and property safe, call 1-800-676-1070. Representatives are standing by to assist you. That's 1-800-676-1070. 1-800-676-1070.
KJagRadio.com. 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 KJagRadio.com.
You got the power, I got the steam.
KJagRadio.com.
If you have ever thought about remodeling your too long or cost too much, then stop worrying. Right now, Jacuzzi Bath Remodel has designed and perfected the one experience so you can enjoy your new bathroom faster than ever before. It's a worry-free bath trusted brand name in the business. Jacuzzi. A jacuzzi bath system, fit tub space. It's a no-mess installation with an amazing style selection, certified installers, and a limited lifetime warranty. Call 800-763-8517 right now and get 50% off installations with no interest and no payments for 12 months. Replace that old bathtub today with a walk-in shower for a safer bathing experience. If you have lived in your home for over 15 years, virtual 800-763-8517. That's 800-763-8517. 800-763-8517.
You work hard to provide a better life for your family. The only problem is that you now have a tax bill that you can't afford to pay. The IRS is now threatening to garnish your bank account. You can't ignore this. They won't go away on their own. You need help. And you know. Give us a call now. During the harassing phone calls. Stop the threatening letters. Stop wage garnishments. Stop any bank levies. And most importantly, put an end to your tax nightmare once and for all. If you have a tax debt of $10,000 or more, call the Tax Pros at United Tax Fix today. Representatives are standing by to assist you. Call 800-678-7027. 800.
Back to the Jiggy Jaguar Show on the network.
A great guest coming up here in just a few moments here on our big program. And if you missed our interview with Silent Season, that will be on our website at themike.be. It's doing very through the one, but I will talk about this book here, Through the Dark.
A book right at the hospital across the site in about for about 3.5 weeks, and all of a sudden this kid was it. Whose family was going to invest, and she needed legitimate partners, you know, media people that had the experience, and she did not. And so there were 3 of us that came together, another journalist I brought in, and we had to go through an FCC process. We were competing with Chicago Tribune, with the Disney Channel. I mean, and we had advantage of being female. We got 3 who were applying for an FCC license in Sacramento, and we went through all the paperwork. We went through the competitive process. I prepared a lot of the testimony that we delivered before the FCC. We, of course, had attorneys back in Washington. That was fascinating. I got to meet some of the, Capitol correspondent anchormen, because we were in the, the nice restaurants for lunch when we went back there for those meetings. And so it was kind of a fun thing, but we had all the qualifications because we had two journalists, professional journalists that were, part of the triad that went after that. We won the license. There was some discussion about what it was going to be, and I was hoping it would go Spanish language or major, something like that. It ended up going into a home shopping network because it would be a cash cow, and the senior partner wanted that. But and it's since been sold. It was sold recently because I got a call from somebody asking me about something, and I wasn't able to give them the information they wanted. I had to refer them elsewhere. But it was a fascinating process, and we outcompeted major media organizations. So it was a wonderful experience to go through, to see how, if you follow the process, you can obtain businesses and a lot of different opportunities.
Fantastic. We have got a great broadcaster with us today. Yolanda Nava is with us. She's an Emmy Award-winning broadcast journalist. She appeared on CBS, NBC, PBS stations in Los Angeles and Sacramento, California as a news reporter and anchor, talk show host, Capitol correspondent. So when you were hosting talk shows, what were some of the most important things that you did as a journalist to prepare for interviews with folks?
Well, when I first started in television, I was doing a public affairs show, and on KNBC in Los Angeles, I was the first Mexican-American woman to be, to appear on an affiliate, network affiliate in Los Angeles market back in the day. And I used to get a ream of material that was about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches thick, a pile of stuff, like a book thick of pages of material that I would have to look at, like the impact of Colorado River salinity and the impact on the border. I met, Senator Tunney. I met a lot of, political leaders, authors, community leaders, people across a variety of fields. And it was fascinating, but you had to study, you had to read the stuff. And I had a first show was on Friday night, when most, post-college graduates want to be out on a date, and all week long I'm sitting in the bathtub reading this stuff night after night, to prepare for the show. So a lot of it is preparation, and a lot of it is being able to jump in and pick up what's going on very quickly if you're doing a fast-moving news story. I loved doing series. I did a series on healthcare in Sacramento that was really future thinking, and referring to the fact that we really ought to pay the doctors when they get us well, not trying to get there. But it was a good series, and it was a half-hour documentary as well. And then I also, while I was up there, did the East Area rapists. We had a terrible problem up there. It was a horrible situation, and they couldn't catch him and couldn't find him. And somehow, James, my intuitive whatever and my research abilities, I revealed a profile of who the rapist probably was, and it wasn't the stereotypic, kind of image that the sheriffs and the police departments usually go after. And one of the sheriffs calls me, and he said, "How do you know so much about this guy?" I said, research. And it turns out that, decades later, they never caught him for decades. He moved from Sacramento to the Bay Area, then he went to Los Angeles, and apparently in Los Angeles he started murdering people. And through the DNA and all the progress that's happened there, they were able to find him. And he had turned out to be a police officer in his 30s who was married. And the profile was very different than what the sheriffs were looking for, all those years. Who would think? And so it's research. It's good luck. It's being able to find the right people to interview if you're out in the field. It's an amazing business, but I love the interviewing part and the people over the years that I have met, and how you can add it all up and hopefully try to apply it to what's going on today and see patterns that were starting then and that we have ignored, and we have to, we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention.
Yolanda Nava with us today. She joins us live here on our big broadcast. She is a fantastic, fantastic individual. So when you started losing your sight, was it a progressive thing, or was it just all at once? How did this exactly go down for you?
Well, I had had a series of symptoms, sinus and ear infection symptoms, for about 9 months, and I'd been going to doctors, and I even had blood tests to see if there was something serious going on, and nothing showed up. And so all of a sudden, I lose sight in one eye, and 3.5 weeks later, and I go to the doctors, and, they can't figure that out. And 3.5 weeks later, the sight goes in the second eye, and so I'm literally blind within 3.5 week period. At that point, I didn't really know quite what to do with it. I went back to the doctors, and the doctors in New Mexico, where I was living at the time, didn't seem to know what to do and didn't have the sense to say, hey, go to Houston, go to L.A., do something. I got to L.A., a friend came to see me, and she saw how ill I was, and we flew to Los Angeles. I was attending a series of board meetings at that time every month to get ready for a new cultural center that we were forming in L.A., La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, a museum to, share the contributions of Latinos to Los Angeles. And I go to this, I go into town for those meetings, and that's one of the ways I got to the hospital. My friend called my children immediately. They got their father, going. He's the second husband, not the last one. And that saved my life. And it was attending those board meetings regularly after I got out of the hospital that got me back on track to lead my life in the normal way that I knew, which was to be active and engaged in serving.
Really? That is amazing. Yolanda Nava with us today. She joins us live here in our broadcast. So putting this book together, what was that like for you? Because you're pretty much blind when literally and figuratively when you put this book together.
Well, I had to go do some training, and I initially got training from the state of New Mexico. They sent a couple of people to the house to train me get me warmed up on the computer to learn audio software. And they gave me a lady that would help me do some research and get myself, ready to really work on the book. And I wasn't sleeping well in the middle of the night, and so I would get up and wander into the kitchen and sit down and write longhand, James. I wrote longhand initially before I got the training to work on the computer. And I wrote, literally in the middle of the night on a lined spiral notebook, and of course the lines weren't there for me. And then I had a volunteer read it to me. She corrected and read what I told her to change, and then she read me all 10 spiral notebooks, and I sat there as she dictated, and I typed it into chapters in the computer. So it was a process, it was a lengthy process, and I thought I was finished with a book a couple of years ago, and I had a very interesting conversation with my doctor, Lawrence Pirro, who wrote the foreword to the book, which is really a beautiful, beautiful foreword, and a very eye-opening for me in private conversations that we had. And so I had to start doing some research on myself. So I started having conversations with people, other doctors, other individuals, asking them, how did I appear to you when you first met me in the hospital? How do you see what's going on with me? And when I talk about how we can shift from thinking wholeness and wellness and that which we want to manifest in our lives versus going into the negativity of the apparent circumstances. And when we stay in that negative place, we're going to get more of it. Thoughts are things, and what we pay attention to, we get more of. Or we shift into creating that which we want to experience and manifest in our lives. And I stayed in that lane. and I came up with a wonderful metaphor, I think it's in the 12th chapter, which lays all that out. But we have a lot more control over ourselves than we exercise. And so for me, it was a process, James. I shifted. I wrote the book, and then I discovered new information from my doctor. And I then used that to go back in and do some interviews and talk about spirituality, look at what was going on, and I shifted the book, and I wrote some very interesting chapters after that, those discoveries and that research.
Tremendous, tremendous. Yolanda Nava with us today. She joins us live here on our big program. She is tremendous, and YolandaNava.com is the official website. So once you basically became blind, did you have any of your peers or anybody reach out to you once this book was released or leading up to this book being released? Did you hear anything out of anybody?
Well, I was in the process of writing it for years, and then and then I had an assistant for a period, and when I read the book after it went to the publisher, I called the publisher. I said, "Stop," because they were already editing. She said, "Oh, we can take." I said, it's not right." She said, "Oh, we can fix the, typo." I said, No, they're factual errors. The changes that I had made had not gotten into the document that went to the publisher. So that, I took the book back, and then I had learned more adaptive techniques and how to use my computer equipment better so that I was able to look at it word by word by word and go in and I rewrote the book. I rewrote the book almost entirely. And then when COVID hit, I thought I had a completed book. And then I said, well, everything is slowed down right now. I'm going to choose to use this period of time as a writer's retreat. So I just got up every morning. I never felt any negative impact personally. I could feel it for other people, but personally, I got up every morning with a purpose. And I think that's a really important thing to help people go through these things that do hit us. They're going to hit every family. I mean, I've had other, traumatic things that I've had to bounce back from, but this, of course, the blindness has been the most challenging. But I had a purpose, and the purpose was to complete this book and get it out to help other people. And my focus on service, like belonging to that organization, which got me back into action and to raise money and, be engaged in the meetings and construct and build a new cultural center in Los Angeles, really brought me back into the mainstream very quickly. And so one of my friends said to me that, you're not a blind woman, Yolanda. You're a woman who happens to be blind, and you're going to remain the woman that you are by, developing your skills and just getting, continuing to do what you do. So I have had people who reached out. I had a wonderful person who was living at the ranch at the time, and Julie, and she was, I consider her my life coach. She says, "No, Yolanda," she says, "you've taught me many things." She said, "I may be helping you in certain instances, but you are teaching me how to look at things and how to, move forward in my own life." So it's, I've had wonderful friends. One of my girlfriends from high school, Cecilia, delivered the clarion call. She's the one that came to visit me, saw how sick I was, brought me back to her home, called my children. She got things moving. I didn't think I was that sick. I just knew I couldn't see. I didn't realize I had an illness which, if it's undiagnosed, is fatal, and it almost claimed my life. I was told towards the end of my stay in the hospital, it was about a 5-week time, to discover what the diagnosis was and to begin treatment. And a girlfriend of mine overheard doctors in the hall saying it's a good thing we arrived at a diagnosis and immediately started treatment, or Yolanda would have been dead in another few days.
Wow.
So I didn't know this, and all the time I was in the hospital, I was doing my, spiritual affirmative work, and I had a lot of prayer chains going on from New Mexico to California and California back, and my own work and study that came into service, my spiritual tools. And I have wonderful friends, James. I have very generous friends, and they've taken me into their homes and helped me. My children were phenomenal. My son postponed a new position he was taking with then Mayor Ed Newsom, and my daughter was working 11 hours a day, so she couldn't, be engaged on a daily basis. But at night they would cook, and we would have dinner together, and then we would watch Mad Men into the wee hours of the morning, and then get up at 5:30 in the morning and start the marathon. So I've had great support from my children and friends, and I've just been blessed. I really have been blessed through this, even though it's been a very difficult challenge. But it is something that I was able to move through, and my life is flourishing and wonderful, and I'm very grateful for that. And it's been very powerful, James, to do this and to write about it and look back at the various stages that I went through and be able to stand back and write about that. It's a very honest book. I mean, I'm mercilessly honest about my own shortcomings, my own resistance to the difficulty of the training program was totally antithetical to my personal way of being and my needs at the time. I needed at the age at which the lights went out, I needed some soft and fuzzy. I needed some hugs, and I needed some holding, hand holding. And it was a very tough kind of boot camp environment that I was in, which was really geared to young people, teens and 20s. And so I had to move through that. And once I did that, and once I got out of there, which I did to go to my meetings in L.A. and, to go back down to Santa Fe, life really shifted dramatically. I just got back to myself and just kept moving forward. I did a wonderful workshop called From Grief to Laughter in New Mexico in Santa Fe. And all the people in that group had different disabilities that had challenged them severely in health. And I was partnered with a young woman, probably no more than in her early 40s, with young children, who was in the 7th year of a fatal disease at about 7 years. And we were partners. She was on an oxygen tank. She was in a wheelchair. And this was her second time taking the class. And she was my partner, and I was her partner. And it was fascinating because all of us in the group went around the room and shared, our experiences. And each of us was very glad we had whatever we had rather than what somebody else had. It was fascinating. And you do go from grief to laughter when you're able to look at what's going on with you, and when you do your self-prayer and use your tools and have the attitude that you're going to get through this no matter what, and allow things to open up and be deeply grateful for everything that you have. And we have so much in this country. Even at the worst, we have a lot. And it's been a blessing, James. And people are amazed because they say, I'm so sorry. They start to feel pity. I said, no, please. I said, blindness is not the worst thing in the world. In fact, it's become a blessing in my life. And an avatar for a very rich, loving, creative, joyous, productive, purposeful life.
We have got a great guest with us today. She joins us live here on our big program. Yolanda Navit is with us. Before we let you go, how do we get in touch with you on social media, the websites, everywhere else?
Well, I have everything. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and what are all of them? I can't even remember them all now. And but on the Instagram and the YouTube, I'm not on YouTube. It's on Instagram. It's in my. I'm not thinking about that one, but I'm on the social media pieces of it. I am the Yolanda Nava, and that's a whole story to tell, so I won't share that right now. But my website has a lot of information on it, www.yolandanava.com, YOLANDANAVA. And the book is called Through the Dark. It's available on the Internet, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. Target is carrying it. Along with my first book, it's all in the frijoles. They're pairing the two books together on Target, which is great because it's all in the frijoles. It's an award-winning book, and that, I would say, is a workshop for what we all need to get through what we're going through in these very challenging times. So it's been it's an interesting journey, you know, to jump out of the old-fashioned way of doing things and jump into social media.
Well, Yolanda, you are tremendous. I appreciate you making time for us today. Thanks for coming on and chatting with us, and I definitely would love to do this again because you are just amazing, my friend, and thanks for doing this.
Oh, well, thank you, James. I really appreciate it. I enjoy being with you, and God bless and have a great day.
Definitely. You too. Thank you, Yolanda. Appreciate it, my friend.
Thank
There she goes. That is Yolanda Nava, and we are going to take a timeout. When we come back, we have got more coming up. Sandra Lee will be with us on the other side, coming up here in mere moments.
Now that we're home more than ever, we need to feel safe. Call it a sign of the times or the world we now live in. What do you want to keep safe? The people in your life? What do you want to protect? Your possessions, the things that belong to you, the things that you've worked hard for. Wouldn't it be nice to have tested, trusted 24/7 protection? Peace of mind, real protection that's always there for you and your whole family? Well, now you can with one of our state-of-the-art home security systems. Everyone thinks their home is safe until the unexpected happens. Start protecting your home and loved ones today with the affordable next generation in home security. To keep your family and property safe, call 1-800-676-1070. 1070. 1-800-676-1070. If you have ever thought about remodeling your bathroom but were worried it would take too long or cost too much, then stop worrying. Right now, Jacuzzi Bath Remodel has designed a collection of high-quality custom products and perfected the one-day remodeling experience so you can enjoy your new bathroom faster than ever before. It's a worry-free bath remodel from the most trusted brand name in the business, Jacuzzi. A jacuzzi bath system fits in your existing tub space. It's a no-mess installation with an amazing style selection, factory-certified installers, and a limited lifetime warranty. Call 800-763-8517. That's 800-763-8517 right now and get 50% off installations with no interest and no payments for 12 months. Replace that old bathtub today with a walk-in shower for a safer bathing experience. If you have lived in your home for over 15 years, it's time to remodel your bathroom. For a virtual or in-home appointment, call 800-763-8517. That's 800-763-8517. 800-763-8517.
Download the iHeartRadio app to hear us live as live can get. Search JIGGY-JAGUAR. You will hear great bits like this from Barry Farber, legendary conservative talk show host.
Makes the difference. But look, man, I got to thank you for giving me this much time, this much respect. You have really made today a great pleasure for me, and I want to thank you for it.
Once you've downloaded the iHeartRadio app, search JIGGY-JAGUAR and listen to all of our past episodes and future episodes of the world-famous Jiggy Jaguar Show, all categorized by hour.
Well, I just want to say I love what you do, James. But I love what you're doing. I love just being a part of what you sharing information with your listeners.
Search JIGGY-JAGUAR on iHeartRadio.
LifeCare provides valuable whole life insurance to cover final expenses such as medical bills, burial costs, and unpaid debt. A final expense insurance policy is fast, easy, affordable life insurance that's available to anyone between the ages of 50 and 80. No medical exams, no lengthy questionnaires, and no waiting period. The application process is quick and easy. You can even apply without having to undergo a medical examination. Just answer a few questions and we'll do the rest. With the average funeral cost skyrocketing to $11,000 and Social Security only paying $255, you need simple, affordable peace of mind for you and your whole family. Don't leave behind unpaid expenses that, if left unattended, will burden your family tremendously. Benefits include a guaranteed premium that will never increase, a guaranteed cash value value and a guaranteed death benefit that can never decrease. To find out how you can get final expense insurance with a guaranteed lifetime rate lock, call LifeCare at 800-671-0247. 800-671-0247. 800-671-0247. You work hard to provide a better life for your family. The only problem is that you now have a tax bill that you can't afford to pay. The IRS is now threatening to garnish your wages and put a levy on your bank account. You can't ignore the IRS. They won't go away on their own. You need help, and you need it now. Give us a call now, and we'll create a plan of action for you that we guarantee will work. Stop the harassing phone calls. Stop the threatening letters. Stop wage garnishments. Stop any bank levies. And most importantly, put an end to your tax nightmare once and for all. If you have a tax debt of $10,000 or more, call the Tax Pros at United Tax Fix today. Representatives are standing by to assist you. Call 800-678-7027. 800-678-7027. That's 800-678-7027. Call now.
Back to the Jiggy Jaguar Show on the network.
We've got Sandra Lee joining us here on our big broadcast. And I always love hearing from Sandra Lee, and we are going to go to the great Sandra Lee joining us on the telephone. So, Sandra, tell us about your latest comings and goings out there in the world.
Oh, let me tell you something, James. This is a crazy world.
Yes.
I don't know. My I am loving. And the second book was Dear Donald, 4 more years. And third book, some hope.
Okay.
Crazy time around the world. Dear in the United States of America. Biden Harris administration and much of the leadership in Democrat states, this is what we're getting. Absolute crazy time. The prices of everything have exploded. Groceries, gas, car rentals, hotels, air flights, housing. We are in the middle of a hyperinflation thanks to Joe Biden. There isn't a store or a place of business anywhere that doesn't have a help wanted sign on the door. Help is impossible to get when the government is throwing free money at the public and demanding that unvaccinated workers go home. What happened, country? It isn't even Halloween yet, and folks are doing their Christmas shopping because it takes months to access what you order while hundreds of ships around the world are stuck in docks, truck drivers are scarce, and those who are working are being paid a fortune, and they can't even get a reindeer to drive his sleigh. 96,000 deaths occurred in the last year from fentanyl. That illegal and being smuggled into the border for months. Texas ranchers have dealt with a relentless stream of illegal aliens traversing their property, cutting fences, breaking their homes. Texas ranchers are fed up. We've let millions of illegals into the country, and millions more are coming. Schools are a disaster. School board meetings are now seeing hundreds of parents storming the board meetings, demanding to have greater input into the curriculum, particularly regarding critical race theory. I promise you, Donald Trump, that the parents are going to show up by the millions and protest. We will not tolerate this domestic terrorist. Will the real domestic terrorists please stand up? It's the government. How dare they have schools indoctrinate our kids? I've been a teacher. I was a wonderful teacher. Teaching is a great profession. But teachers are not to indoctrinate children. They are to promote their reading, writing, arithmetic, education in general. But the parents do not want schools to indoctrinate the children. And you know what, dear Donald? Thanks to you, we see the swamp for what it truly is. It took us years to see it. We see it. We get it. Now, please, please come back and help us to drain this darn thing, this daunting task, to drain this swamp. Looks like it's impossible. but with you, we have hope. That's my letter, James, for the day.
I will tell you, Sandra, you are just a positive person. It seems, because the world needs a little bit more positivity, my friend.
The country of the United States of America is the world's dream come true. This is the hope of the earth. We cannot let it be run over by socialism, which is a failed system, by communism, which is a cruel system. We have to open our eyes. This is not about being Democrat or being Republican. This is about fighting for the American dream. Be careful, people, because it's at risk.
Well, Sandra, before we let you go, how do people get your books and get involved with what you're doing on the web?
Oh, my goodness. Please go to Barnes & Noble or anywhere where books are sold. Do not go to Amazon. I'm too pro-Donald Trump, and Amazon doesn't like Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is starting his own social media network. Isn't that exciting? So that we'll have a free voice again on public media. That's important.
Well, Sandra, I will talk to you next week. Thanks for doing this, my friend.
Oh, it's my honor and my pleasure. God bless you.
Definitely. I will talk to you next Tuesday. Thank you, my friend. There she goes. That is Sandra Lee, the amazing Sandra Lee, and we are going to do this. We are going to see you next time.
Back to the Jiggy Jaguar Show on the network.
Okay, it wasn't quick, it wasn't long. But we are back live here on our big broadcast. And we are going to go to our first guest, or potentially our only guest today on the show. We are going to go to...
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system. 3.
No, that would never... So, let's... Because we can guess it.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice message. 3.
Says this only number. That might be his only number.
I can call in on my...
Well, what I can do is here. Yes, actually, I'm going to put you on hold here. I'm going to be right back. So hold on. I'm going to hold you. Take a break via the old...
Need main classes well called Best Medcare. Our licensed insurance agents can look up your current benefits and tell you what additional benefits are available. It's free and you have no obligation to buy your own monthly claims. You deserve every medical care coverage benefit out there and we'll help you get them. Call 800-991-7014. 800-991-7014. That's 800-991-7014. And let Best Medcare do the work for you. If you don't have final expense insurance, this message is for you. Life Care provides valuable whole life insurance to help cover final expenses, medical bills, burial costs, and unpaid debt. A final expense insurance policy is fast, easy, affordable life insurance, available to anyone between the ages of 50 and 80. No medical exams, no lengthy questionnaires, and no waiting period. Call Life Care at 800-926-6092, 800-926-6092, 800-926-6092. Life Care provides valuable whole life insurance to cover final expenses such as medical bills, burial costs, and unpaid debt. A final expense insurance policy is fast, easy, affordable life insurance that's available to anyone between the ages of 50 and 80. No medical exams, no lengthy questionnaires, and no waiting period. The application process is quick and easy. You can even apply without having to undergo a medical examination. Just answer a few questions and we'll do the rest. With the average funeral cost skyrocketing to $11,000 and Social Security only paying $255, you need simple, affordable...
Okay, we are going to try this. I'm going to... I see IQ. I know IQ is with us. And I think Dan's with us.
Dan is with us also.
And our guest should be here in just a few seconds. And hopefully, we will Skype you go on the air. Jovino is with us. He is the life of Penguinville. He is the show. How the hell do you do all?
And what I have my show, man. You're a great guest. Thank you. For the time spent. It's an element. Nothing ever gets resolved unless it's uncomfortable, unless you're vulnerable, and unless you're willing to be out there and meet people face somebody in the eye and talk and get to know them, and thus we have the situation we're in today, where these issues, get somebody deep down beyond the skin, look at the eye, and their beauty, and you put them in categories and people because of hate, much easier not to change, much easier not to be, and it's all basically trying to tell young people that they are deep in their skin with a wheelchair, whether they have a solid or basically trying to tell them through the penguins, partial you are unique underneath, and that's what Penguinville yourself is all about.
So Dan, you wrote children's books. What do you for does he enters his way into children's literature?
It's books and 3 children's books, and they were all right and all had a message. I was listening to what you were saying, just that one of the things that we as parents perhaps have forgotten to teach our children is the ability to listen. I started my program 6 months ago on the America had forgotten how to discuss problems simply and really. You could start a dialogue on your chin or whatever, and it very quickly turned into racism or whatever you want to call it. So we are trying to fight the issues that are hunting our people without this and that's a big, huge challenge, to be able to have a conversation respectfully. You can disagree, but disagree respectfully. Attacking the other person, I would say that Jim's show but I do my best to try and have a civil discussion with them about concern about called media. But I believe I believe it's important. This is an observation of military. One of the talk people in militants move on to the next situation. We'll be saying, wait a minute. What's going on in your mind, and your heart, and your soul is important and shouldn't be measured in terms of then we can begin a dialogue that builds perhaps a penguin community of people who are respectful to each other. They said,
and I think the problem is, in the old days we sat on front porches and back porches and talked. We didn't have technology, and I'm talking about a kid growing up, and you got to know each other. You got to know each other to the point where you took on each other to the house 2 doors down and eat cookies if she made fresh cookies and they weren't even home. The problem with the reaction time is you're reacting for the most part now through technology and not face to face. When you're having a cup of coffee with someone and talking with someone, it's very hard to say, look, I'm leaving, or I've got to hurry, or whatever. You take time, you sit and talk, and you get to know that person. I think we've substituted the amount of likes for the depth of the love. And so we get on social media, and I did this before I got off social media, which was about 5 years ago. You get on and you're talking to someone, even someone you know, and you're having a conversation, And before you know it, there's 15 other people on there, and they've taken you to a place you didn't even start. You don't even talking about it anymore, but you're doing.
Right.
It's a legitimate, deep conversation on possible to solve a problem in social media. The only way to do that is to mean contact with people and tell them, I people in my life from I was being part of that football team and from back, we were a melting pot, black, white. I literally, and I'm not just to be condescending or to be, with my people I know, I literally I see color. I don't see difference. They grew up in the part of Miami. I grew up in Ohio. Some people grew up in a rural farm in Iowa and never saw an apple, but that looks beyond that. And you stop seeing what we did in this country, Dan. The other part is, some media has categories. You know, I heard, can't remember the ad was, but he was interviewed, I think it was Morgan, and somebody asked him, Larry King said, how do we get beyond racial? And he said, how I stop calling me black, and we just start into each other. And that's really the key to this whole thing, and we're never going to get it straightened out until we get back to that. Never.
Joe, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate what you're saying. But a gentleman who's said a really important piece of it. I grew up in Columbus in the 50s and 60s, and we had a black population. We didn't have a huge black population. We had a It wasn't until that I left Columbus to go to Fort Knox, Kentucky, to go into individual infantry. A lot of, and they weren't black people. They were just people.
Yeah.
And so what IQ has did some time ago, and many times since, is that what's desperately needed in this country, we need to go back to community service, whether it's joining the military or whatever. We're many people already breeds the colors together under and we can bring people together. The problem and the focus is not their color, but the problem. You want to have a much better situation. I think I'm not suggesting that we need that, suggesting that we need the opportunity for the next generation to turn this thing around by being intimately involved, people of different races, so that the color lines appear. Yes. I got involved before I moved to New York. I got in a civil rights suit in Columbia against the board of segregation to create a better education system for black people in Columbus, and we won the case. But I am many years later appalled that we have black people say we have segregated dorm areas and curriculum to come. And I'm when I hear that, I say to myself, why did I waste all this time if we're going to go back to segregation? So we're not breeding a group of people who has humanity to do with human being that needs to be able to step up and say, I want to have a relationship with this person back, they need my help, or the Puerto Rican or Hispanic or whatever it is. It's just a person, and it might be. There was a great deal of consternation against Eisenhower actually desegregated the military. So no longer matters. And so some of the drill sergeants that I had in basic training at Fort Knox were black and were as hell on my ass, but they produced a group of people who were proud to be Americans, were willing to go to war for the country. And so I think IQ's idea, we got to bring back community service. We got to do something to change the situation, and having people involved in the military, which eliminates the lines of color. You still feel that way, IQ?
I am agreeing with you. I've suggested it years ago. The draft will be the only solution because your education system completely failed you. Yeah. Your social services, the news media completely failed you. And your politicians completely failed you. I'm looking at you. I'm Iraqi, Arabic speaker, my Islam, but I also deal with foreign affairs all over the world, and I write articles about these things. The tragedy in America is that the Democrats deliberately, starting with Obama, the traitor-in-chief, who divided America racially, economically, socially, you name it, he did it. And again, what I say, In 8 years of Obama, he caused more destruction to America than 30 years of the Soviet Union and
I would agree with you to a certain extent, IQ. I think human beings are naturally inclined to divide unless they get to know each other. I mean, you look at the conflicts between Shia and Sunni, the conflicts between different groups. There's always this desire of man to want to separate and want to either be superior or to say something about the other group. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes, but I don't think the way you are saying it. It's a biological imperative that all animals are territorial. This is biology. You can't change it. We are territorial. We belong to the family, the clan, the tribe, and the nation. And we always look at somebody else who is not part of us as could be the adversary. So it's not because we choose to hate them. We fear them to start with because they are not the same as us.
Yes, but that's I traveled to China 3 years ago to compete in a Kung Fu tournament with 22 other countries, mostly Asian, but all over. There were Islamic countries represented. There were people from all over the world, 22 countries. I had tremendous apprehension about going into China. Would I be targeted? Would I be this? All the stereotypes of being there. I absolutely fell in love with China. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with my competitors. Even though we could not speak the same language, there was a bond that
Kung Fu bond.
Pardon?
The Kung Fu bond. You already have a bond.
Well, but we came from different countries, and there were also people that I met on the streets, police officers, different people, but I was willing to be vulnerable. I was willing to put myself out there to get to know, break down barriers, break down stereotypes, and get to know these people from a country that I had grown up to kind of fear. And I was able to find relationships beyond the stereotypes. And I think, there is a desire to separate, and yes, you said families and clans and all that, and countries. But when you get down to the base, we are truly all the same, and we truly have the same needs and desires as human beings. We want our families taken care of. We want opportunities. We want all those things. And there is a common spiritual bond that goes deeper than who we are on the outside. And I think that's what we have to find again.
On the human level, you're absolutely right. On the human level, I mean one-to-one. You're right. Look, my authority is on Islam. Islam is the enemy of every human being on the planet who is not a Muslim. This is not negotiable. This is part and parcel of the Quran. But I have very close relationship with people who are from Somalia, from Saudi Arabia. They know that I am an authority on Islam. Because when I debate with them, I can quote to them chapter and verse from the Quran that the Imam doesn't know about. So they have respect for me, but they fear me also at the same time. Because my knowledge is greater than theirs. But we have respect.
But you've been able to break that. You've been able to break that down with certain people, to, even though they may disagree with you,
yeah,
they still care for you.
True. But they care for me because I went to the level of their intelligence. I studied their background. For example, if I'm going to go to China, I will spend at least 3 months reading about China so that I get into the mindset of the people. There's a saying, in war, if you don't know your enemy, you lose every single battle. You've got to study the enemy or the adversary or the stranger. The more you study them, the more you feel comfortable with them.
And I didn't feel like either an adversary, an enemy, or a stranger. I felt like I was going into their country. I was going to be polite. I was going to be vulnerable. I was going to be open. I went into the schools with the kids. I saw the kids came around me. I think I look at it a little bit differently. Is I think we have to, rather than getting to know them from a book.
That's only to start with. I didn't say before I visit them, I want to know about them. At least when I communicate with them and I tell them, for example, such and such an emperor and such a king, such and such a dynasty, I'm already making contact with them on the historical level.
I hear you. I agree with that. I agree.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you didn't interrupt me. I'm glad you said that.
The problem with America now is, what are you going to do about the border?
I unfortunately, I think we've given up. Any country doesn't have a country. You cease being a country if you don't have borders. Because
I just had a few minutes talk with Dan. I said no country is sovereign without border. It doesn't exist.
No, you're not. You cease being a country if you're open borders. We might as well just be. We're just one big continent here, and we give up our sovereignty. We give up our borders. If we don't have a language, I mean, and I'm not saying my parents came, or my family came here from Italy, Sicily, and they didn't speak English when they came, obviously, and they kind of joined together where it was comfortable to in groups, neighborhoods, but they all learned the language. They taught us the language. They revered knowing the language and becoming part of the United States and all that. But I guess I'm not opposed to immigration. I'm opposed to uncontrolled immigration, and I'm opposed to not closing the borders. I've said that many times on my show. We've talked about that. And so we're basically giving our country up. We're basically saying we don't have borders. We're not going to have sovereignty. It's a mess, and I don't know where it's going. I feel helpless as a citizen to be able to change it. So I don't know. You asked the question, what are you going to do about borders? Somebody much more powerful than me has to figure that out.
Why? I don't understand the point of much more powerful. You mean much more patriotic than you are?
No. What do I do? I mean, and this is a great question. It's a great question you asked me, because what do I do as an individual citizen?
Simple. If I were in Texas and I'm a Texan,
okay,
I have the right to bear arms.
Yes.
I will collect all my friends and we go to the border, and anybody who crosses the border illegally will be shot dead.
Yeah, and then
don't tell me about the human rights, please. Human rights start in America.
But then
He's fired up today, Joe.
Listen, if you have 100,000 citizens doing it, who's going to put them in jail? There are not enough people to put them in jail. There is not enough soldiers to put them in jail. What we're talking about here, the defense of a nation.
Yes.
This is why you had the Minutemen. This is why you had the Second Amendment, to protect you from invasion. But now you're having invaders coming in. It's not only with terrorists, but also with diseases that you've never had before. They're coming back again to you.
Yes, and drugs.
So how can anybody justify that on the political level? So the traitor-in-chief is Joe Biden.
Yes, and I agree with you 100%. I mean, I have no argument for what you're saying, IQ, because I feel it, I see it, and you can. I convict myself of being hopeless about it.
Yeah, but that's dangerous. I know. Listen, I agree with you. You're hopeless. I am hopeless also, in the sense, because I'm trying my best to educate Americans for the last 14 years. Unfortunately, I have failed miserably because they don't seem to learn anything.
I did for 15 years too. I did a radio show, a talk radio show for 15 years, and finally just got worn out.
It's a tragedy. It really is. And we are talking about young people without putting them in the military, not to go to war, at least prepare for war, because China is preparing for war.
Oh, yeah.
So if you bring the military back to have young men and women join the army, the men for 2 years or 1.5 years, the women for a year or something like that, they will be indoctrinated into discipline. What you have now are generation after generation of undisciplined, brain-dead young people who have been completely indoctrinated by leftist globalist professors.
Yes. Now let me ask you another question, IQ, and this is a kind of a deeper one, and I see this. I mean, there is a saying in business that says shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. And it means basically that the first generation, the grandfather or whatever, comes and he builds a company up and he works hard and he rolls up his sleeves and he gets it going. And then by the 3rd generation, they become complacent. The owners become complacent. They let it go. And they're back to shirt sleeves again, trying to build the business back up because they let it slide. All countries, all major empires in the history of man have suffered. I mean, go back to Babylon, go back to Meso-Persia, go back to Greece, go back to Rome. These were all great empires with great people that started out in terrific ways, and became complacent and ate themselves from within. I almost feel, I don't almost feel, I feel that the United States is that same example, where founding fathers fought for it, people fought for it, people cared about it, people took patriotism as important. My father's generation was a great generation that went through the Depression, the war, the whole thing. My mother is 100 years old. She's lived through everything. And we have reached a point where we have become complacent. The founding fathers predicted this. And I don't know if we've gone so far now that America can ever be reclaimed as a great country.
Well, if America is not reclaimed, and very soon, Western civilization is finished. Because I'm telling you, Europe is going to fail under Islam or fall under Islam long before America will do. Europe in 30 years will be Islamic.
Let me jump in here and take this conversation about the subject matter in a totally different direction.
Okay.
Let me suggest to you that I did an interview yesterday with a scientist who heads one of the largest CO2 research institutions in the world. And he's talking about all of the dislocation that's taking place in the world. And he said you can trace history that when the temperature of the world is cooling, things get very bad. When the temperature of the world gets warmer, things are very good. He said we have a conflict with among our people, that the people who are who are concerned with global warming, and we have AOC who's telling us the world's going to end in 12 years because the world's getting warmer. As a scientist, he's gone back and for millennia and found that when populations were under a period of a warming trend, they grew and they prospered. Right now, he says, what's happening in the world, and specifically happening in the United States, there's actually a shortage of CO2. We have the major producers of CO2, green plants, are not being planted, and so they can't convert the CO2 into a usable byproduct. And so we have a situation where we have people in the world who are bringing about the end of the world, or trying to bring about the end of the world, to make it colder by reducing the CO2 levels. And that we have thousands of people in the scientific community who support that subscription of we need to bring down the CO2 levels, yet we also have thousands of scientists who disagree the other way, is that CO2 allows the country, the nation, and the world to grow and expand and be more peaceful. Diminishing the supply of CO2 makes the world harsher, the people angrier, and a diminishment of growth. I realize that sounds like a crazy scenario, but he went back and has traced every major civilization, and their success and their failure has been done not on their education, not on their economy, on the amount of CO2 and the temperature in their area when they were succeeding or failing as a nation and as a people. So he's saying that we have this drive to drive down the CO2 levels through the pollution people, and what they're doing is trying to get the CO2 levels down to the point that we'll have an inability to grow crops, which means there's going to be less food for the people, which means that people are going to start dying because the world can't sustain themselves at lower, cooler temperatures. So he's saying we've got to understand that nature in and of itself plays a role in so many things that goes on in our world. We are not paying attention to nature. We're trying to believe that we, as a personhood in the world, can manage nature, and we can't.
Well, we really can't manage anything.
True. We can try and convince ourselves that we will, but we can't. I mean,
no.
We can't change the way Muslims feel about non-Muslims. I mean, it's part of their history and culture and heritage for 1,200 years.
Yes, the only way it can somewhat change is on a one-on-one basis, but that will not happen in today's society. So that brings us to the whole thing. Is our world salvageable? And that is really the question that comes from all of this. The development of being able to speak over, like we're doing, is positive, but it's also negative if this is the only way people communicate. All the things that are going on, it's flawed man trying to fix flawed problems. And the problem is the people who are making the decisions they don't have vested interest to serve their fellow man anymore. They have a vested interest of greed and power. And so they will do anything, dividing, separating, keep people against each other from unifying so that they can maintain power, and through power can generate wealth and all the individual goals of each person on this planet. That's my big concern, is that we are no longer serving each other. I don't try and ask IQ what he needs, what you need, Dan, what Jim needs, what can I do for you? It's how can I manipulate you to serve me? And I don't think I don't think that's going to change. I think we've gone too far down that path. And I don't mean to be a fatalist. I'm not. I'm an optimistic person, but I don't think we're salvageable at this point.
I did a show, excuse me, IQ. I did a show literally before this show with Peter Navarro. Peter was the production czar for Donald Trump. He's the one that got the industry to build the medical equipment, the PPP, and the breathing apparatus. He was instrumental in getting the companies together to develop the vaccine. And I said to Peter, I'm 76 years old, and I've never seen a country go downhill so rapidly as we have come with both Joe Biden as president. And I said, I hear people say, if we can hold on to the 2022 elections, and I'm saying, so what? 2022 might create a control of the House and the Senate from Democrat to Republican, but it's not going to stop Joe Biden with his pen and his phone, like as Barack Obama said. So that he will have 2 more years to govern, or Camilla, whoever it is, and we're looking at 2024. I said to him quite specifically tonight, I said, Peter, is it too late? He said, it's important to understand that when you have people in power for that long who believe in an adverse opportunity and that America needs to be punished and taken down, I'm not sure, even if we change in 2022 or 2024, there will be any will left to change.
I would agree with that. And also, you look at the fact that at this point, I don't trust any of them. And that sounds like that sounds just like I'm giving up, and I'm not. But you've got too many people who are in power for way too long, you know, when people can make a living, and it used to be, our country was founded on servants, on public servants. These people didn't want to be in Washington. They wanted to get back to their farms or Philadelphia. They wanted to get back to their work. They wanted to get back home. They saw this as a sacrifice to be in public service. Now you have people, Robert Byrd, who dies there. You have Nancy Pelosi, who's been there forever, Mitch McConnell, who's been there forever. All these people who essentially create a life insulated from society, not having to go by the rules of society, having their own health care, having their own barbershop, they're completely isolated from the real world, passing laws that affect all of us. I've said the only way that we're going to straighten this country out, the only way, and it'll never happen because the politicians won't do it, but we have to have term limits. You go into office and you're there in Senate for maybe 2 terms, in the House maybe 3 terms, and then you have to get out. You have to go back and you have to live by the laws that you created while you were there. There is no amnesty or no special pension or anything. You go back to work and you follow the laws. Now you watch how quickly those people in the House and Senate vote the right way, because they know in 6 years I'm going back home and I got to live by these. We have to create true public servants once again in this country. And you say, you know, we talk about forced initiating the draft. I think there should be a public service. You get drafted, you go into public service if there isn't a war. You have a choice. You go into public service, you go into the military. But I also think we have to, citizens of this country have to demand that there are term limits. And until we do that, we get people entrenched in there that stay there, and they're in it for their own purposes. Do you believe in any, that Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Robert Byrd, anybody else, Ted Kennedy, people who were there, John McCain, they were there forever. They lose touch with reality, and they start doing things for them because they'll never have to live by the laws that we, the people, have to live by. And until that's changed, that's the one thing that I think has to happen for this country to get back on track. If you have career politicians that lock themselves in there and can become reelected every year, and everybody says, oh, we have term limits, it's election. Well, you know what? Nancy Pelosi has got the power, the funds, the backing, the people in her back pocket. She's never going to lose an election. She's going to die in office. And we have to fix that. If we don't fix that, we will never straighten this country out. Never. And that is my soapbox talk for the night. But that is what I have been preaching forever, that if we don't get rid of career politicians and if we don't create public servants again, we are doomed.
Yeah. By the way, all 4 of us agree with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Because it's the only solution. There's no other solution.
IQ's right.
Yes.
That's the thing.
No matter what, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Yes.
It was you. It was you too, IQ.
Let's start with with Dan Perkins. Dan, you are terribly busy. I don't know, Dan Perkins, how you manage to cram everything into one day. But Dan, as we wrap up the show today, how do we get in touch with you and get in touch with all of your programs and everything you're doing?
Well, Joe, I would love to, if you're not on, even though you're not on the air, I'd still like to have you on my new program, Black and White.
I'd love it. Thank you.
We'll get the contact information from Jim, and we'll get you on the show real soon.
Yeah.
Jim, we just got our numbers for audience in the 30 days ending October 15th. 6.4 million listeners.
Wow.
Amazing.
And that's come in from a dead start at 0 6 months ago.
It's a 6.4 from 0 to now. That's amazing.
That's awesome, Dan.
And we had Peter Navarro on our show today, and he said the reason why your growth is there, he says, I suspect because people finally found a place where the people speak the truth and they feel comfortable listening to what the people have to say. And I think that's true. So that's Black and White. blacksandwhites.us is the network for the show. We're in the process of literally in the next week or so, Jim, launching a massive new website. And this Foundation for Veterans is songs and stories for soldiers.us, where we work with veterans through both the VA and private facilities to deal with post-traumatic stress disorder, sleep deprivation, and suicide prevention. Now over 135 different institutions across the country and over almost 12,000 veterans we've served. I've got 2 new books that are out at publishers. They're not published yet. One is called Sad Eyes. It's a romance. It's my first touch at romance. And that will be out hopefully by the end of the year, but we'll see. And the second one is Abraham Lincoln and the Second Assassin, which should be out sometime in the spring. And starting a new book, I'm going into a new category. I always try to go to someplace new when I write a book.
Fantastic.
I'm writing nonfiction. And the working title for this book is Come On, Man, quote, Joe Biden, how the Democrats destroyed America in 9 months.
Wow.
Well,
And
that is fantastic. IQ, where can we read your stuff and get involved with what you're doing, my friend?
Very simple. Just Google my name, Al Rassooli, ALRASSOOLI. I don't sell you anything. Only information, only facts, only truth.
So, Joe, how do we get your book, my friend?
Well, you could go. It's Penguinville. Come find yourself. You can go to all bookstores online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble's Kids, Books a Million, anywhere like that. You could go and you could buy it. It's a book that parents, I think, need to read to their kids, and then they need to use it as a means of discussing. I wrote this book, actually, and I think I told you this, Jim, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I wrote it for my son when he was young, and because I wanted him to know the truth. And 25 years later, it's more relevant today than it was when I wrote it for him. So it was, I didn't do this to make money. It wouldn't be bad. I'm not opposed to making money. But I did it for a purpose, and I did it for a reason, and I hope people would read it, and I hope their kids would read it, because I think it's an important message.
Fantastic.
Good.
Well, Joe, thanks for doing this. Thanks for talking to us here on Skype. Dan, as always, and IQ, I will talk to you on Thursday. Thanks, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Bye. And that wraps it up here from our big broadcast. We are going to take a brief break, and when we come back, we are going to be back live here on our world-famous Jiggy Jaguar radio broadcast back here in just a few moments.
Jiggy Jaguar.
Neil Bort's with us today. If they put Fox News on, liberals will complain. If they put CNN on, conservatives are going to complain.
Jiggy Jaguar.
We've got Tom Donahue with us today. I started to organize, no, not like Obama.
Jiggy Jaguar.
Publisher of Talkers Magazine, Michael Harrison.
And it's a lot of fun, and it's very informative, and it does a lot of things. One, it's
www.jiggyjaguar.com. Back to the Jiggy Jaguar radio show on the network.
Back here live on our world-famous Jiggy Jaguar radio broadcast. We are coast to coast and border to border on iHeart Radio. Also, just 50-plus AM/FM stations across the country and around the world. We have got a great guest joining us here on the telephone, and we go to the telephones. And welcome to the big broadcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, James. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. We've got you. We've got you, my friend. Go ahead and give us the information on where we find you online, social media, websites, everything.
Sure. So I'm the author of Spirituality for Badasses. You can go to Amazon, find that real easily. Just type it in, Spirituality for Badasses. You can go to the website, which is the same name, Spirituality for Badasses. And that's how you initially get in contact with irreverent, humorous self-help.
So, how did you come to write this incredible book? Tell us all about it, my friend.
So I get asked that question quite often, of course, and my mic drop answer to that is depression. When I was in my 20s, I got a bad case of life depression, existential depression, and just did not feel comfortable on this planet, just did not feel okay in my own skin. And that led to the pursuit, sort of kicking and screaming, into spirituality. Pharmaceuticals and conventional therapy was not my cup of tea, so that's kind of all that was left on the table. And I got involved with it enough to get a good taste, and wow, there is something to this. And fast forward a number of years, and the depression is gone. So that's how I got into this. And how did I write a book? I'm a naturally just creative and person, and I like doing that kind of thing.
Fantastic. We have got a great guest with us today. Jeff Dixon is with us here on our big broadcast, and Spirituality for Badasses, that is the latest from him, and he joins us today here on our big broadcast. So, what's been some of the reviews and feedback you've gotten on this book so far, my friend?
Good. So I'm a self-published author, and to sell 13,000 books in a span of about 8 months is pretty good. I released the book in January, and so that's, there's a big interest simply because of the cover and the title. But every day I get really moving reviews and emails about how the book has helped them through a hard time, how that it has inspired them, how they tried for years and couldn't make any headway, and so that kind of thing is really where the rubber hits the road. Is so what if you sell some books, but is it really, really helping people? And I think the answer to that is yes. It's putting a smile on people's faces, and it's helping them to find their own inner badass, helping them to find an island in the midst of this hurricane that we're living in right now.
We have got a great guest with us today. The author of Spirituality for Badasses joins us here on our big broadcast, coast to coast, border to border on iHeart Radio. So, this book, incredibly well written. Take me through the writing process for this great book.
Sure. So it came about, this is my second book, and I tried to write a second book for a number of years in a more conventional fashion. I just hadn't found my voice yet. I was trying to find a way to teach mindfulness, a way to teach spirituality in a non-dogmatic and non-religious way, but just hadn't really found my voice. And I tried this one thing and put a few ads on Facebook, and it just sort of flopped, and it was just frustrating. I was like, screw this. I'm just going to be myself. I'm just going to be potty-mouthed and humorous and say what I want to say, even if it's slightly offensive, even if I'm, out on an edge and out on a limb. And I did that. I wrote the first couple of chapters in a few days. I put a little thing on Facebook, and it just took off. I got immediate interest in it. I think that I think there's, it's so funny. You always hear if you want to be an author, if you're writing something, you need to be authentic. You need to be authentic. And it just took me a while to find what my authentic voice was. And so that's the writing process, and how I basically wrote the book. Is just, I was like, okay, what limits can I break? What boundaries can I burst? And I really just enjoyed the hell out of writing it.
We've got a great guest with us today. Jeff Dixon joins us here on our broadcast. Spirituality for Badasses is the latest from him. And he joins us today here on our big broadcast here on iHeartRadio. So this book, you've put a lot of time and effort into this book. What do you want readers to take away from your writing?
Awesome question. So I think the readers, I would like them to take away the sense that everything will be okay. We live and have lived for the last year and a half in such a storm of crap that you can't help but to feel strung out. You can't help but to feel hopeless. And this is exactly how I felt when I was going through depression. And I did indeed find out that there's this part of me that's okay, and that if I nurture it, if I can seed it, if I can give it some time and some attention, that will spill over into the rest of my life, and it will grow and it will grow. So that's my intention, that's my message, is that everything will be okay. And I'm just another voice trying to provide assistance and help in times that are stressful and in times when people are hurting, and it's an alternative way of doing so. And so that's the message, man.
We have got Jeff Dixon with us today, Spirituality for Badasses. He joins us today here on our big program. So tell us about the cover of this book.
You want to know about the cover of the book? So I will tell you the little story about it. So I designed the cover. I'm a sort of a hack graphic designer, and when I designed this book, I want to first say, no, I was not thinking of Hunter S. Thompson and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I was not thinking of that at all. I just wanted to have a cover that was bold, in your face, and just spoke exactly what this was about. So there's a road, a meandering road, that goes off into the distance, and this book is an adventure story where I take you, the reader, on a whole bunch of to a whole bunch of places and go through a whole bunch of adventures. And then there's the sunglasses, of course, where it's just an icon, just a symbol for being for not losing your cool, for being a badass, which I think a lot of people can relate to. So that's how the cover came about, and I do get slightly peeved when someone says, "Oh, it's just like Hunter S. Thompson's book." I'm like, "Oh, that was written 50 years ago, and I didn't even know his book had sunglasses on the front." So no big deal. But that's how that came about.
It is Jeff Dixon. He's with us today, Spirituality for Badasses. He joins us live here on our big program. So who are some of your, I guess, influences on this book, or heroes of writing or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think probably my biggest hero is a fellow named Jed McKenna, who's a very strange sort of author. He wrote a series of books, Politically Incorrect Enlightenment, and a bunch of other books that are about spirituality and self-help and growth. And his was one of the first books that was irreverent, that spoke in an unexpected tone. Like there's some passages in his book where he goes skydiving. There's passages in his book where he's just sitting around playing Tomb Raider. I'm like, man, now that is cool. That is a spiritual teacher that I could get into. This is an author that I can get into. So I really, really was influenced and enamored of his writing style. Another author that influenced me heavily is Mark Manson, who wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F-U. I don't need to fill out the rest of it. Really famous, really big book. One of the big tomes in the irreverent self-help field, The Subtle Art of Not. And boy, that's a great book too. Just humorous, down to earth, authentic, and real. And I think those books helped me to find my voice. In doing the same thing. So there's two great authors who were some influences.
We have got a great guest with us today. Jeff Dixon is with us. Spirituality for Badasses is the latest from him. He joins today here on our big program here on the Quad Pod. So what elements did you draw upon to develop this book?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the majority of the elements come from 20 years interacting with a bunch of unorthodox spiritual teachers, mostly in the Zen, Buddhist, and Hindu Advaita Vedanta traditions, and teachers that were small in stature and teachers that were big following. You go into a hall and there'd be thousands of people. So most of the work comes from that. I also draw upon mindfulness-based stress reduction, modern neuroscience, a little bit of mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, and a little bit of what I call Zen head slap, where you're like, hey, wake up, man. Are you paying attention? That kind of thing, where you're like in their face a little bit, which I always appreciated, always liked. And then the last thing that one utilizes, and why the book is I think been so well received and is attractive to people, is storytelling. I don't just lay out a bunch of stuff for you to, exercises and do this and do that. It's not like that at all. It's not boring. It's a story. It's a story where I take you through real life adventures, and there's humor in the story, and there's unexpected things happen in the story. Like, for instance, we go to a biker bar in North Carolina at the beach. It's called Lucky's Two-Stroke Biker Bar, and I take you in the bar, and I get you mindfully drunk off of tequila. And so I can guarantee you that this is the only self-help book that you will ever read where you are getting mindfully drunk off of tequila. And so I do that kind of thing, and as part of the story, there's a fist fight, we end up in jail the next day. So there's all sorts of funny stuff. So storytelling, you can't underestimate that. And that is a big part of the book.
Fantastic. Jeff Dixon with us today, Spirituality for Badasses. He joins us here on our big program, Coast to Coast and Border to Border on iHeartRadio. So give us the profile of the typical reader who's going to love your book.
Oh, that's such a great question. Boy, I love the readers and the fans who have been reading this book, because I can tell that they're kind of new to the spiritual waters. They're attracted by someone who is just like they were. I didn't get involved in spirituality to become a saint or a yogi or some sort of do-gooder. I got into spirituality because I was hurting. I was in pain, and things weren't working for me. And I wanted a change. I wanted things, as I said before, to be okay. And so I have a great sense that those who read this book are hurting in some fashion or way. They're kind of tired of conventional religion, and we're all sick to death right now, all of us, of absolute truths. So this book offers a refreshing take on finding your way, finding some inner peace and happiness, and those who have read it are new, and they're open, and it's awesome because this is reaching a group of people that normally really wouldn't have anything to do with spirituality, and I love that so much that I'm able to touch many, many people who wouldn't normally pick up a book like this.
Fantastic. Jeff Dixon with us today. Spirituality for Badasses. He joins us today here on the Quad Pod, and he is just amazing. A great storyteller, great book. So name one entity that you feel supported you on this book outside of your family members.
Name one person who supported me in this book outside of my family members.
Yes.
That's a very interesting question. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna say my neighbor. Sort of. Yeah, if that counts. My neighbor's a pastor, and he's such a cool guy, and he's also a writer. And so, funny enough, we just had a lot in common, and have shared a little bit of the journey, the writing journey together. Some of his work has taken off at the same time as mine, and so it's been a real joy to interact with. I mean, he lives right next door to me. The odds are infinitesimal that I would be living next to someone else who's also a writer that, you know, is not exactly the same material, but somewhat, I mean, being that he's a pastor, it's similar. It's just so beautiful and so awesome and so inspiring and so cool. So there you go.
Fantastic. It is a great guest, and the book is amazing, Spirituality for Badasses. Before we let you go, my friend, how do we get in touch with you on social media and everywhere else?
Sure. You can find the book on Amazon. Just go to Amazon, type in Spirituality for Badasses. I have a feeling hundreds and hundreds of people have already done so it'll pop right up. And then you can go to my website, spiritualityforbadasses.com.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you making time for us today. Thanks for coming on our big program and chatting with us. Have yourself a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you, sir.
You too, James. Take care, buddy.
Appreciate it, brother. There he goes. That is Jeff Dixon. He's with us here on the Quad Pod and Coast to Coast and Border to Border on iHeartRadio today. And we are going to do this. We are going to take a brief time out here. And if you're watching us, listening to us, however the hell you're doing this, we are going to get it figured out, and we will be back here